Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome back to Le Frères, Heureux, a Frasier podcast where we pull out our old DVD collections and go back through our favourite series of all time and discuss it with you lovely folk, one disc at a time. My name is Fraser, not Frasier.
Yeah. I'm Euan.
Not Pooin.
No. Thankfully.
that would be not good.
Yeah.
And welcome back. We are on the final disc of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to have flown through. I know it's probably less than most podcasts. You know, they tend to take their time and do, one episode.
I can't imagine doing this one episode at a time.
I think that would take too long. You're talking, 200 episodes? 300 episodes?
Over 200.
Yeah, like that. We don't have the patience for that. We're young. We've got things to do.
Yeah.
So we're going through one DVD disc at a time, which means we get to chat for 6 episodes worth of the show. We are coming up. Well, we're at the end of season 1. This is the last disc of season 1, and we've got 6 episodes to go. So overall, this is one of my favorite discs.
Yeah, this has got some great episodes on it.
This is like of
Absolute
all the
bangers.
show. I think easily the best of season 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
But of the whole show, I think this is the best, if not one of the best. I'm trying to think of any others. There's a couple in season 2.
I think season 2 might be my favourite overall, but I don't know if there's any one little set of episodes that can compete with this. I mean, we'll get to which episodes on this disc are particularly good, but there are some really great ones.
There are a couple that are sort of, some of the best episodes of television, let alone of Frasier. This has some absolute crackers on it. So we start with Give Him the Chair.
Yeah. It's a good episode.
It is a very good episode.
Mm-hmm.
I always skipped it in my rewatches, and watching it again now, I don't know why, because it's actually really, really good.
It is. It's very funny.
It's actually really funny. The premise is a wee bit depressing.
It is. It's something that has been discussed before and will be again, kind of in the earlier seasons. Martin just kind of feeling very displaced, like he isn't really at home in Frasier's apartment still. The one thing that he has going on is the chair, and of course it doesn't fit with anything else, and it's not part. Oh no, well, it is part of the eclectic collection in his apartment. That being probably the most eclectic thing there. And Frasier sees it upon himself to get rid of the chair, basically, and replace it with something that suits his apartment better, without consulting his dear dad. Yeah. Which is pretty horrible, to be honest. I think it is.
Regardless of Martin's emotional attachment with the chair, it's pretty rude. It's just pretty disrespectful. Mm-hmm. But I noticed some interesting parallels, actually, and we'll get to them throughout the episode. But when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, that's actually quite interesting.
Oh, well.
And
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you can ponder on that for the next 5 minutes. Yeah. But so we actually start with a really great guest call.
Yes.
The episode start. This whole run of episodes actually has some really good guest calls. Or even just like episodes of the Frasier Crane Show. Yeah. Starting off the episode are really, really good. But this one has Dr. Baruga. Dr. Bruga, sorry. I said that earlier. I said I was going to make that mistake. Yeah. Calling it like Beluga rather than Dr. Baruga. Who's voiced by the wonderful
Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did not know that until I looked it up there. But so he calls into the show and has sort of a guest spot on the show, speaking with Frasier about psychiatrist stuff. Yeah. The psychiatric
talking about
things.
his new book about the male menopause and how men, as they get older, become completely obsessed with sex. And he so perfectly demonstrates that by trying to flirt with Roz on the air. And
who actually accepts it at first.
Until she sees a picture of him in the back of the book. But
she sees a picture. Which, yeah, so it's just a nice, funny thing to start off with. But I kind of like that this is one of the first instances of Frasier being exposed to the psychiatric circle and sort of his professional relationships with other doctors, and not just seeing him as sort of like the showbiz side of things, which was nice to see. It comes up again infrequently throughout, but I'd say, probably most of the guest spots are all...
They're just callers. They're patients.
Yeah, they're callers rather and patients. And even when he sort of meets with... Well, I suppose there's a couple of other doctors later on, but there is it leans quite heavily on him meeting other celebrities who aren't related to his profession. So this was kind of nice to see, even if the guy is a bit weird. But yeah, so we kick off the main plot, and basically Martin's chair's falling apart. The disgusting old... I mean, it looks dead comfy, but the disgusting old upholstery and the pattern, and it's just falling apart. And Frasier's getting a bit frustrated at the fact that Martin keeps duct taping it up, and he just won't get rid of it. So yeah, he takes it upon himself to get rid of it and replaces it with, in my opinion, a much worse looking chair.
Yeah, I'm not big on leather. Really, I don't like a leather chair. I like a nice fabric.
You want a comfy,
it's much more comfortable. Yeah, I don't vibe with leather. So the idea of that, and honestly, the idea of a chair that has like a massage thing in it, like a vibrating chair, like, leave that in the airport, my man. Like, we don't need one of those in our fancy apartment.
But I'm pretty sure in one of the earlier episodes, Martin's chair, he does say that it has a vibrating function or something. So I don't, because Martin's quite taken aback by the vibrating chair when they do bring it into the apartment.
Yeah.
Everyone else loves it.
Yeah.
Frasier and Niles try it out, and Daphne tries it out, and they're all very excited at the prospect of a vibrating massage chair. But Martin, being the sort of older generation, he has his sensibilities and sees it as a strange sort of sexual thing. But yeah, I don't know if it comes in. It is earlier, isn't it? I'm sure it's earlier in season 1.
I think it's maybe even the first couple of episodes.
Yeah,
they talk about how it vibrates, and there's definitely the one in what's it called? Call Me Irresponsible. Yeah, there's a scene when
he plugs it in, doesn't he, to try and
girlfriend are going at it,
that's right.
Sorry, and the chair starts vibrating. So clearly, up to this point, we have seen that the chair vibrates.
Yeah,
I don't think it comes up that often.
It doesn't. I don't know if it comes up again, but Anyway, Martin, he's pretty taken aback, and he's pretty upset that the chair's gone, and Frasier, I think he pretends, but it's a bit ambiguous. He says he puts it in storage and kind of blames it on Leo, the hapless lackey of the building. He kind of blames it on him that he didn't listen to his instructions and threw it away. But I always kind of thought that Frasier just said, "Nah, just bin it."
Yeah, he probably would have.
And then he just blames it on poor Leo.
Yeah.
But anyway, Martin does a very sort of emotional speech about how much the chair meant to him.
Yeah.
It is quite sad when you think about it. Like,
I watched the moon landing in the chair, and he was sitting in it when he found out that Frasier was having a baby, and he was going to be a granddad, and this whole thing that it's like the one thing that attaches him to his old life when he still had his wife in the picture, and it is a shame that's like he's holding on to that. And for good reason.
And yeah, absolutely. And it ends on quite a somber note, that scene as well. It kind of ends with Martin giving this very emotional speech about how upsetting it is and how that was what made him comfortable in the home. And the scene just kind of ends with everyone looking dead sad.
Yeah.
Which is not, it normally sort of ends on a joke or sort of a more light-hearted note. But some of these earlier episodes, they do have
quite sad moments.
Quite dramatic and emotional scenes, yeah. And it goes on. But yeah, what I was thinking earlier, the sort of parallels between the first episode is that
Frasier feels very uncomfortable in his home when all of these things are brought in, when Martin and Eddie and the chair are all brought in, and then this is kind of his way of putting things back to making himself comfortable, and just ignoring everyone else.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what you were saying about like the few things that Martin has that makes him.
Yeah,
it makes it feel like his home kind of thing.
The one thing that he has.
Yeah, but it's pretty sad, and it's just a bit of a dick here. He's just not very nice to Martin, and it's a shame. But he feels bad, and he does again uses his radio show to try and get a lead on where the chair might have gone, because it's been taken from outside the building.
It's been stolen,
been napped up, because it's a lovely chair. It's a lovely chair.
Yeah,
people want that chair. They saw it looked comfy, they went for it. So I don't. How is he allowed to do this? Like, that's personal business, and he just takes like a huge chunk out of his show to try and resolve his own business. He also gives away his address.
Yeah, which isn't great.
That's a huge red flag. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. Maybe at this point, he doesn't have a station manager, so he can just get away with anything.
That's true.
Because the previous station manager,
Ned Miller,
he got fired.
He did
6 episodes ago.
They might not have replaced him,
and they don't start season 2. There's a new station manager, so maybe this is during a gap where they
just kind of free for all.
The cats are away and the mice can play. You know.
Yeah. But eventually they get a call. They've tracked down the chair, or what they think might be the chair. After a few humorous ones, it was one guy phoned in to say that they thought it was at the top of the Space Needle, or a UFO over his farm or something like that. But they find it, and it's being used for a school play. Was it 10 Little Indians the play is called?
Yes, which most people would better know now as And Then There Were None, which is it's an Agatha Christie play.
All right, okay.
Yeah, 10 Little Soldiers or 10 Little Indians, or going back even further.
I think it's known by something else, isn't it?
What the original title was something much more offensive, which we're not going to say.
I'm sure I saw that somewhere.
If you're really
the other
curious,
day,
Google it. Yeah. So that's...
Okay, I didn't realise that was the same...
It's the same one.
The same one. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, so they're doing... I don't know anything about the play itself, I'm afraid, but I know
Not really, no.
It's obviously... The school kids are capable of doing it. It seems like a high school.
Yeah.
The teacher's great here. I love the teacher.
She is very funny.
She's just at the end of her tether trying to deal with all these kids, and she's got like this positive face on, trying to direct everyone, and then as soon as she turns away, she's just like ready to die.
Yeah.
And the one saving grace is that they've got this great looking chair.
The most entertaining thing on the stage.
It takes the attention away from all the kids. So Frasier kind of barters to get it back. But yeah, after one of the kids drops out due to a stomach flu, Frasier is drafted in to help out. Which, to be fair, that's his own fault.
He should, he could have just said, "Oh, I don't know anything about this play. I haven't done it before. I'll just take my chair and get out of here. Bye-bye."
Frasier being Frasier, he
has to brag.
Brags about being in the play when he was younger and the specific role that he took, and it just so happens that specific role was the young student that got sick. So, so he gets drafted in, which is a little bit weird, bringing in a 40-year-old man to play with a bunch of high schoolers, but I guess if he knows the lines, then it's fine. He's a celebrity.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
He can get away with it. And that was his deal to return the chair. It kind of ends. There's not
a nice moment of Martin getting the chair back. It just kind of...
There's sort of post-credits.
Is the end of the play.
Yeah.
And we don't see what happens after that.
But there's no dialogue or anything. The post-credits I noticed, actually, when I was watching this disc. We've not spoken much about the post-credits.
No, not really.
Maybe a couple of times, but there's some good ones on this disc that I've specifically made notes about that I want to speak about. But here, it's all done post-credits with Frasier presenting the chair again to Martin. But we don't see sort of that emotional resolution kind of thing, which is a bit weird, but it's fine. It's fine. They move on, onwards and upwards.
There was actually another little guest appearance. It's not, you probably wouldn't even call it a guest appearance. One of the kids in the school play who has one line, there's a girl called Olsen, is played by Brittany Murphy.
Brittany Murphy, yeah.
Who went on to become quite famous. She was in Clueless, was kind of her breakout role, and
sadly passed away.
Very young. Sadly passed away when she was late 20s, maybe. I think it was 2010-ish.
Yeah, I think
she passed away. Yeah. Very sad. There was a documentary that came out about her recently.
She led quite a big life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame. But this was one of her first roles. That's one I always remember whenever someone mentions her, because she's obviously popular with sort of like the teen drama and those kind of films and shows. But I always remember from this.
Yeah.
So whenever someone mentions her, but yeah, it was a shame. But yeah, she has a small role in the kids. And of course, Malcolm McDowell, not Martin McDowell, as the guest caller, Dr. Beluga.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this episode? How many cups of coffee do you rank it?
It's pretty good. I don't think there's an awful lot in it that strikes me as being like hugely funny. It's got a nice little plot, a nice little sentimental plot about Martin fitting in, which we do see over and over again, but it's always nice, or at least it's always a little bit touching. I'd give it a 3 cups.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you.
Yeah,
I think I'd agree with you.
It's quite down the middle.
See, I before I watched it on this rewatch, I always ranked it quite low because I always found the scene with the play quite awkward and quite cringy, I wasn't a huge fan of it. But rewatching it now, it's pretty well put together. I like the teacher. I like that she doesn't take any of Frasier's shit and just it's like, you want this chair, you act in my play.
Yeah.
And yeah, the stuff with Martin's always good to see. The sort of emotional depth of the show is nice. So yeah, it's 3 out of 5. I think 3 out of 5 is a good score. Good score.
Fair score.
Yeah, the other I realised what I was going to say earlier. I think kind of went off on a wee bit of a tangent, but when we're first kind of when the issue's first raised with Frasier and the chair, the issue of the chair, Frasier kind of accuses Martin of being like a creature of habit, and he's stuck in his ways, which is pretty hypocritical of him.
Yeah,
considering he was in that same position.
He's so reluctant to let anything change about the apartment.
And he's the one who is a creature of habit and doesn't want to let Martin keep the chair.
Yeah.
So it's all this. They're all you can. There's a lot of depth to the sort of familial relationships that you kind of don't always think about straight away. All these things, all these parallels that kind of jump out at you out of nowhere. You're like, oh,
yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. But yeah, so give him the chair. Don't give him the chair. Make him do a play for the chair. 3 out of 5 cups of coffee. I think that is a perfectly reasonable score.
Yeah.
We move on to Fortysomething. Now I thought this came a bit earlier in the series. I was wrong. I thought this was part of the previous disc, and I think it's because I always get this one mixed up with Death Becomes Him.
I suppose they are similar
because the themes are quite similar. With Frasier getting older and sort of worrying about his age and things like that. So I always get these two mixed up. But 40-something is, there's kind of two plots to it that are sort of joined down the middle.
Yeah.
It starts out with Frasier starting to forget things. And there's the whole joke that it's a midlife crisis, that he's getting older, that he's over 40 now, so of course he's going to be forgetting things. He's getting old.
Yeah, his eyesight's going. can't get in and out of a chair without groaning. And
yeah. And then it kind of shifts halfway through the episode to focus more on him having a relationship with a younger woman.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, they are similar. They're this sort of overarching plot of him being an older man.
Yeah.
But I feel like they kind of split it.
Yeah, they could easily be two separate episodes. You could do an episode just about a midlife crisis and then another episode just about him dating a 24-year-old.
Exactly. So
I can see that.
I didn't really think about it much. But yeah, it does feel quite a little bit disjointed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than some other ones. Excuse me. But yeah, as I say, it starts out with Frasier forgetting things. He forgets Rosa's name when they're signing off on the show.
Yeah.
And actually, this is the one I was thinking of when I said this has some great intros. With the Frasier Crane show.
Yes, absolutely.
One of
my favorites.
One of the great gags, and it's audio only, which is quite unique.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a total. There's a couple of them on Frasier's show. A couple of like the audio gags where we don't see what's going on. We don't even see the person at the end of the line.
Yeah.
And the guest has called in complaining about being in a strange sort of love triangle, and it's her husband and her husband's dead wife.
Yeah.
And he keeps her ashes on the windowsill in the room.
It's in the bedroom.
In the bedroom, in the mantelpiece or whatever.
Ugh.
And which is it's proper Shudder material. Like, oh no.
Yikes.
But she obviously loves him very much and wants to try and find a solution. And as they're talking about a solution, you just hear this big crash, this big sort of glass shattering on the ground coming from the phone. Yeah. And it's just so well timed and the noise is perfect. And it's just great. It's so well written.
What always makes me laugh is the little joke afterwards when after Rachel, the caller, hangs up, and Frasier says, as Rachel helps her husband's dead wife off of the floor,
yes,
which is quite a little. I mean, obviously these things are written so far in advance, but it's you do get that sense of like Frasier having like a quick wit when he says stuff like this. But yeah, so Rachel that calls in is voiced by Reba McEntire, who was a quite well-known country singer and also actress. She was in one of our favourite films, Tremors.
She was in Tremors.
Playing Heather Gummer, which is a very strange name.
I love the Gummers.
They're very funny.
We could do a whole podcast on Tremors as well, to be honest
with you.
Probably,
absolutely. Stay tuned.
Well, yeah.
Summer 2022, it's coming.
But yeah, no, she's very good. It's just sort of very sort of light cameo, I think, probably.
Yeah.
But she does a good job. She has that good gang about the urn.
Yeah.
But yes, anyway, so at the end of the show, as they end the show, Frasier forgets Rosa's name. Mm-hmm. And he apologizes quite profusely, but she makes a good few jokes at his expense.
Completely winds him up,
complaining that he's forgotten her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
When obviously it's not her birthday at all.
It's not her birthday.
And then as he gets fed up with the joke, he storms out the room and she says, you're not forgetting something? And he's like, no, I'm not. I've had enough of your jokes, and storms off. And then she's like, okay, well, I tried, and turns back, and we all realise that the show's still going.
Yeah, still on the air.
So he has this great little run. He sort of does this sort of E.T. run.
As he always does.
Back into the room to finish the show.
Kelsey Grammer is very good at the physical comedy. I think the way he runs and the way he screams when he's surprised, and it's just the little movements making him look very dramatic, it is very funny.
I think his arm movements, he's very sort of,
they can be
Shakespearean, dramatic arm movements. It's great. And so we move back into the apartment, and there's sort of bit of dialogue with Niles and Martin, which I quite like. It's not often we see the two of them together hanging out. There's sort of there is a few episodes, but there's not a lot. So
Yeah.
I like it when it happens. They've always got some good jabs against each other because they're, Frasier and Martin are different, but they have, some common ground. Frasier's willing to try the football, and he's occasionally, athletic in his jeans and jumper, and he enjoys a beer, whereas Niles they're on different planets.
You think that Frasier and Niles together can both be very fussy and very pretentious, but Niles is always so much more so than Frasier. So there is always going to be that slightly bigger gap.
Absolutely.
Between them and Martin.
He has the great little line when Eddie's nibbling at his shoes. And he's sort of saying, like, Eddie, get away. I had these shoes shipped from a blind cobbler in Seville. And it's just so, like, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. But you can totally believe that Niles is so pretentious that he has had a pair of shoes shipped in.
There's another joke in an episode later on this disc with his obsession with shoes and fashion.
Oh, and the tassels.
The tassels, yeah.
Which is actually a recurring joke. I'm sure they make a joke.
Oh, probably.
Later on about tassels.
Probably.
Anyway, yeah. So yes, he likes his shoes. And they give Frasier a wee bit of a hard time, saying that he's getting old. Martin makes the joke, it's like, oh, well, you think you've got it bad. I've got a son. You think you've got it bad being middle-aged. I've got a son that's middle-aged.
Yeah.
And Niles obviously teasing him because he's younger.
Ever so slightly.
A little bit.
A difference of about 4 years or 5 years, maybe. If that, I don't even know.
I don't know if they
I don't know what the
age
age difference
detail,
is supposed to be. I think he's supposed to be kind of 37, 38 at this point.
Yeah.
Frasier says he's 41. So
41 in this episode, yeah.
So, not that big of a difference.
No,
he's certainly coming up on middle-aged.
Yeah. I would consider middle-aged to be 50, 55, only if you live to be 110.
Yeah.
He's got a point.
It's a very good point. I will, for the rest of my life, I will probably associate like the start of middle age to be 41 because of this episode.
Yeah.
It's, I will always associate this episode and this show with the concept of being middle-aged because of this. It's
God, I feel middle-aged now. See, when Martin does like a run off of the things that define getting older. So he says, can you sleep through the night without getting up to pee? To which I have to say, sometimes.
Yeah.
Can you get in and out of a chair without groaning?
No.
Nope. And can you eat a slice of pizza, more than 12 hours before going to bed? I'm like, I can, but not comfortably.
No. Yeah.
So I'm sitting here listening to Martin read off these questions, thinking like, oh my God, I've got another good 15 years before I'm...
Yeah.
Before I'm Frasier's
Am I
age,
middle-aged or am I just really unfit?
That's it, that's it, yeah. But yeah, so they give him a wee bit of a hard time, but he's, he is getting older, and it's, it's all in good faith, I think. They are trying to help him as well, sort of find there's no solution to it, but, get him a bit more comfortable with his situation.
Yeah, go through it with some dignity rather than trying to fight it.
Exactly. Martin shows off the photo book where he died when he was Frasier's age, and he dyes his hair jet black and buys a motorcycle. Like, and yeah, Frasier's midlife crisis comes in a little bit more of a creepy way.
A little bit.
It's a little bit uncomfortable, although I do think he handles it very respectfully.
He does.
I feel. So presumably the next day, maybe later that day, whatever it was, they go out to the mall. They go shopping. New pants for Martin, I think it is. New underwear for Martin, or whatever. Just a generic Saturday. And Frasier bumps into a young shop attendant who's very eager to help him. Who's being very nice and, arguably flirty. I don't know if she was, but
yeah,
at first anyway, being very friendly. and Frasier's sort of saying like, oh, do you think she likes me, Dad? Do you think she's interested in me? It could be, she's very flirty, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that kind of attitude's it bothers me a little bit. Cause like she's just doing her job.
Yeah.
She's just trying to sell things. You can't take everyone being nice to you as flirting,
Absolutely not.
So I think Frasier's kind of reaching a little bit, but then she does, towards the end of their conversation, she does something. She says, makes a sort of offhanded comment about him being very handsome or being very cute.
Yeah.
And you kind of realize, oh, actually, maybe she is being quite flirty.
Yeah.
And then that is, of course, confirmed later on when Frasier goes back to the office and she shows up out of nowhere to deliver his pants. Mm-hmm. Much to the enjoyment of Bulldog and Roz, who are watching. Bulldog gets some good jokes in there. I love his humour as well with the
honking the horn.
Honking the horn.
Always perfectly timed.
It's perfectly timed. It's brilliant. I love Dan Butler. And yeah, so the young shop attendant, whose name's Carrie, I believe.
Carrie, I think, yeah.
Stops in and says, "Oh, I brought your pants with you, for you." And Frasier's quite shocked. It's like, well, is this a service that you give everyone who shops at your store? And she's like, no, it's just I just wanted to see you again. It's kind of like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. But I think, to Frasier's credit, he does handle it quite well. I think he does kind of, his gut reaction is to say no because of the age difference. Mm-hmm. And he kind of respectfully lets her down and says, look, I'm really sorry, but, there is quite an age difference and I don't think it would be appropriate, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's not until he tortures himself and talks about it back and forth with pretty much everyone he knows that he, in the end, decides to give it a go, by which point Carrie then realizes that she was only doing it because she's got some unresolved issues with her dad.
She was having a quarter-life crisis. Yeah, and it's a bit... So he does... I don't know. He handles it very respectfully, first of all. And I think that should be the message that they take away from it, rather than the... It's actually Niles that gives him the advice, mm-hmm. who says, well, who cares what other people think?
Yeah.
Like, is she attractive? Are you interested in her? Do you think they could lead to a relationship? And if so, then forget what other people think. Like, go for it, basically. Yep. And I don't know. I think there's a limit. I think they've got a 20-year difference. I think she's 22, she says.
I think so. I think that sounds right.
So 19-year difference. As Martin says,
old enough to be his daughter.
Old enough to be his daughter. So
we know the rule. It's half your age plus 7.
Is that the rule?
That's the rule.
Is that the rule? Okay.
Half your age plus 7, so he realistically shouldn't be dating anyone that's younger than about 27. 27 and a half.
I mean, I would 27.
Even then, 41. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but that's like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. We'll go with that rule for now. But yeah, I think
that's what they say.
He does. He kind of handles it quite respectfully, first of all, and then it kind of devolves into just do what you feel kind of thing, which is a wee bit of a dangerous attitude to have.
It is. Especially after she says that the only reason she would be doing it is because of her own issues and not necessarily because she actually wants to of her own volition. Then it's like, well, maybe she thinks she's making herself happy, but is she?
Maybe she needs someone older to kind of make the right decision for her, kind of thing.
That's where it falls apart a little, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, it ends with them not dating, so
yeah. So
it all ends well in the end, I suppose. There are some good jokes with the comparison with Stanley Barrister, Frasier and Niles' friend, I think, or opera buddy.
Someone they know from somewhere.
Yeah, someone, another upper class friend, mm-hmm. who is in his 60s dating someone who's early 20s, I think they say.
Yeah.
And they sort of have a nice little ramble about how strange it is and, and gross. And what does it say? Frasier says, "Oh yes, well I saw them last week Tuesday night." And Niles says, "Yeah, I saw them last week as well, Wednesday morning." Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have that little moment, which is good fun, but it kind of leads into Niles' point of saying, "Well, Stanley Barrister doesn't care what we think, so why should you care what anyone else thinks in that kind of situation?" And it's like I
usually good advice.
Yes,
but
in this case,
maybe not so much.
I think could definitely have given some better advice. But one thing I do like is how grounded Niles is when he's giving psychiatric advice. There's quite a few times that Frasier, Martin, and Daphne, they all go to him for advice at some point or another, and he's very level-headed.
Yeah, he stays impartial
when he's giving advice.
Usually,
yeah.
There are some exceptions, but
and I think when you compare that to some of the advice that Frasier gives out on the show, it really shows that Niles is the better psychiatrist.
Yes.
In my opinion, anyway.
I think so.
I think he definitely has more experience dealing with people, and he's obviously got his practice where he's dealing with the same person over long periods of time. Frasier's the fast food approach to psychiatry, as Niles says. But yeah, it's I do like Niles. Everyone likes Niles. So yeah, what do you think? I gave this a 2 out of 5. I think just fills up 2 of my cups of coffee.
Yeah.
It kind of falls apart for me with the split in the plot. As you said, it does feel like it could be 2 separate episodes. Yeah. Both exploring like the midlife crisis, but also the Frasier getting older could be 2 separate things.
Yeah.
And it just felt a wee bit disconnected for me. It's got a few good jokes, but it's not overly funny.
Yeah, I like a good few of the jokes in it. I think the call at the beginning definitely bumps it up a little bit for me. So I'd give it a 3. I think it's a nice down the middle kind of episode.
Okay. You look, you're about to say something.
Nope.
No. Okay.
No. Don't have much to add beyond that.
No,
3 cups of coffee, I think, is a fair score for this one.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair if you enjoy it. Yeah. I wouldn't give it any more than a 3. Yeah. For me, it's a slightly lower, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I could give it much more than that.
No. But next up, we have a very good episode. One of the most memorable episodes, in my opinion. We have Travels with Martin, which should give you a good idea of what we're in for on this episode. Frasier starts the episode speaking to Roz about his holiday plans. He has got some lavish getaway planned. He wants to go away by himself, leave the family behind, leave the flat behind, leave his job behind, go and relax for a week or 2, just sit by a pool and drink cocktails.
Yeah.
Which sounds very good at the moment.
It does sound
I have
very
to
nice.
say, now I'm describing that, I'm like, I could go and could definitely go for a holiday at the moment. And he speaks to Roz about it, who has her holiday settled as well, and she's taking her mother to Ireland to go and spend some mother-daughter time. And Frasier feels very guilty, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which he shouldn't. I mean, you're allowed your own holiday if you want it. But yeah, and after this guilt put on him by Roz, he decides to take the idea to Martin about going on a joint holiday, where they can go and basically do the same thing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to feel the guilt of leaving Martin behind. He can just take him with him.
Go somewhere. I think the plans were like the Galapagos Islands is one of them they'd name, and going to get adjoining suites somewhere, sit in the sun, get drunk during the day,
but just
classic holiday stuff.
They don't have to be close during it. They can kind of do their own thing. But after he gives Martin the option to pick the holiday, a choice that he will later regret.
Of course.
Martin says that he would love to go for a holiday in a Winnebago.
In an
RV to us.
Motorhome.
Whatever
you want to call it.
Yeah. He wants to explore America.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go anywhere abroad. He just wants to explore the country he was born in.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard just immediately regret. Even you can see, like, straight away as soon as he says it, he tries to keep like this upbeat attitude and excitement, and you can see him dying inside.
Yeah.
The acting's great. It's just, yeah, it's brilliant. So they eventually, Martin convinces Daphne to come along, perhaps bribing her with his pension money, as he puts it. And Niles initially is reluctant. He says, "You're my brother, so you're entitled to a kidney and some of my bone marrow, but this is an imposition."
Yeah, it's too much to ask.
I mean,
a week in a Winnebago.
Oh God, yeah, it would be quite a lot to ask. To be fair, I don't know if I would go if you begged me to come with you. No.
Don't think so.
Winnebago. I can't see you going for a week in a Winnebago.
Oh no, definitely not. I think I'd rather just not go on holiday. I'd rather stay at work.
Yeah.
But yeah, because Daphne goes, Niles of course goes because he fancies Daphne.
Yeah, he sees that as a good excuse to spend some time with her.
Yeah. So they go off together. The plan is to go to Mount Rushmore,
mm-hmm.
And just keep going, following the road, not making many stops, which sounds like a pretty boring holiday, to be honest. If you're going to be going and seeing America, as they say, you should be actually seeing things, not just going down the motorway. And
well, Martin says that it's what made him choose Mount Rushmore was that it's the furthest possible distance they can make it.
Yeah.
And back again in a week.
Yeah. So
driving
for 3.5 days. Walking around for an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
Looking at Mount Rushmore, take some pictures, 3.5 days back.
Driving back.
It sounds like a nightmare.
So where is Mount Rushmore? Is it Arizona?
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
South Dakota? One of the Dakotas.
Okay. So that's
which is
East Coast.
So they would go through Idaho, then Montana, and then into, I think. I'm not... My US geography isn't great.
Yeah. I know they're northwest.
They're right at the northwest.
Washington's northwest.
And it's kind of north in the middle.
Okay.
So going east, near the border with Canada, as is very important.
Yeah, they're going quite...
they eventually convince Martin that they're, rather than just driving one way, maybe they should go and explore and forget about the map and go somewhere else. They wind up crossing the border into Canada while Daphne's sleeping.
Yeah.
Daphne isn't allowed to leave the country because she's not got her visa, she's not got her green card, or she's still on probation or whatever it is. And they then realize that they're going to get into a lot of trouble trying to come back across the border if they find out.
They stop at the bear picture.
The bear is...
I'd love to get a picture of the bear.
That'd be great.
They stop at this little like shack. I don't know, it's probably just like a roadside attraction kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this big stuffed bear. They want to get their photo taken with it. And yeah, as they're getting the photo taken, they announce that they've moved into Canada, and Daphne's screaming,
hysterical. Yeah,
because she can't leave the country yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they come up with Martin comes up with the solution. They're just going to sneak back across.
Just go back across.
Just pretend like nothing's happened and just sneak back over. Which, as a ex-police officer, it's a bit dodgy.
Yeah, it's not a good thing to do, really, but it's not exactly immoral, I don't think. I mean, it's an honest mistake, but you know that it's not the kind of thing you want to get in trouble for.
It could be serious as well, they take the border control and stuff, they do take it very seriously. So yeah, even if they did kind of, I was thinking like, why don't they just phone up the border control or the police and just explain what happened, kind of thing. But then you kind of put Daphne at risk of getting deported or even failing like certain of the regulations that you need to emigrate.
Yeah.
So I guess the best solution is just to try and go back the way they came, hope for the best. It doesn't go well.
No. I like this because it's not something that we've seen a huge amount of so far, but we do get a lot in other episodes, is that it's not the characters aren't playing off of each other. The conflict isn't like Frasier and Martin disagreeing about something, or Frasier and Niles disagreeing about something. It's all of them together get themselves into a situation and have to get out of it.
Yeah.
And this kind of like hijinks that they get up to as a group.
Yeah.
But it is nice to see all of them kind of working together to get out of this situation.
Even if they're bad at it.
Even they're very bad at it. Martin is good because, I mean, he was an undercover cop.
Yeah.
Or at least was briefly an undercover cop. So he's good at thinking on his feet, and he's good at lying and being able to hold up against scrutiny. The rest of them are absolutely not. Daphne can't pretend to be American.
Total breakdown. They're all panicking, and
it's
Niles rocking back and forth.
Yeah. Yes.
And they do get stopped at the border.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very sort of classic border guard where he comes on with a smile on his face, but he's very critical and precise in his questions.
Yeah.
And they obviously are all totally unable to keep it together. The border patrol picks up on it, and Martin is thankfully quick on his feet and is able to come up with a quick lie that, well, presumably a lie, it could be the truth, I suppose, that Eddie doesn't have his rabies certificate.
Yeah.
They don't have the proper documentation for the dog. So whether that's true or not,
maybe
it could be. But as he does that, and now I always thought this was like he genuinely forgot, but now.
Oh yeah, no.
I think it could be like
he must have known what he was doing.
Yeah.
He kind of goes, oh well, here's a picture of him in Seattle, in case you're worried that we picked him up in the country and we're trying to smuggle him in. And of course, as he gets his wallet out, flashes his old police badge.
Yeah.
And kind of, oh yeah, of course, oh yeah, I forgot, yeah, I was a cop, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then the guy just goes, well, clearly, if you're a cop, you're not going to be up to anything. Don't let it happen again, but go on through.
Yeah.
No, I think it definitely must have been intentional.
You started saying clearly a cop's not going to be doing something illegal.
Oh no, I think the opinion of a border patrol officer is probably going to be that a cop is doing something illegal.
Absolutely.
My opinion is that you can't trust them at all.
Welcome to the Socialist Podcast.
Yes.
No, but I know what you mean. Like they're very sort of one of a kind. All the enforcement officers, they sort of see eye to eye, and they're like, okay, well, he's one of ours, so we'll let him through.
Yeah.
And it does a good job of distracting from Daphne's inability to do an American accent.
Yeah.
So they get away with it in the end, go on their way, and it ends with a nice little scene of Frasier and Martin chatting in the Winnebago, discussing the events of the day and laughing about it.
Yeah.
And they want to go, or one of them suggests, why don't we go and do our own little travels, just the two of us. We'll ditch the other two at home.
Yeah.
And there's this like awkward moment of silence where they both realise that would entail.
They're still not quite ready to be just the two of them yet.
So they ultimately decide to go for it, but they're going to just leave Martin, Niles and Daphne with them. And they joke about saying they've crossed the border to Mexico this time to see the look on Daphne's face.
Yeah.
But no, I like this episode. It's a memorable one. It's got some good laughs.
It does have some good jokes. Yeah.
It's one of the first times we've kind of seen Daphne and Jane Leeves perform something a bit different. We had the episode with the Martin's criminal friend.
Yes.
Where they go out to the club and Daphne defends herself. She gets quite a bit of plot there. We've had with her relationship with Eric.
Yeah.
The barista.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a couple of episodes where Daphne's kind of gone out of the norm and she's not just folding laundry and has a nice little anecdote. It actually gives her her character, but bit more
well-rounded.
Well-rounded, yeah, which is nice, and I like that. And
nice.
Jane Leeves is good at it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship between Frasier and Martin is
Yeah.
always nice to see. We always like that. We always come back to it as well. It's
kind of like they talk about in the very first episode, there's the story of Lupe Velez and the idea of just because something doesn't work out how you think it's going to, doesn't mean you won't get what you want anyway. And I think that's kind of echoed here as well. You know, Frasier wants to go with Martin on a holiday so that the two of them can bond. What he wants is go on a nice relaxing holiday to the Caribbean or something, sit and, you know, spend a little bit of quality time together and get a bit closer. What actually happens is they have to break the law together and, you know, go through this ridiculous ploy. But in the end it works. It helps them bond and they get a bit closer because of it. And it's nice to see.
It is nice. It's good. I like that. I like that you've tied that together with the Lupe Velez story. The very, very first episode. Ties it back. Yeah, that's nice. So what do you give this? How many cups does this fill for you?
This is a 4-cupper for me. I give this a 4.
I would agree with you.
I mean, not to give too much away about the coming episodes, but I don't think I could give this disc another 5. I mean, this is maybe one too many. I think 4 is deserving because it's not quite one of the best, but it's certainly very good.
I think I'd agree, and I think it lacks a little bit when you compare it to some of the other episodes on this disc in a way, just in terms of the humor and the amount of jokes in it.
Yeah,
I think plot wise it's one of the best. I like it. It's unique. We're seeing this is the first time they're outside of Seattle, one of the very, very few times
that's true
ever outside of Seattle.
Yeah.
Albeit in a, you know, they're in a fake stage
in
in an RV, but the idea of them being outside Seattle is nice and just getting a bit of a change of scenery. I'd agree. I think four cups of coffee. There's not really many guests in this episode. There's not.
I don't think there's any.
Lot.
I don't, because you get.
I think they even start off the episode at the end.
They just
of
kind
the
of
show.
round out. Yeah, Frasier finishing the show. We don't even hear like the end of a guest call, as far as I remember.
I will say one of my favourite jokes in the episode, though, one that always makes me laugh, is the whole reason that Niles comes with them is because Maris is out of town on her own holiday. So he's going to be at home alone. I mean, obviously he goes because of Daphne, but under the guise of, he doesn't want to stay alone. So he goes with them. And he says, "Oh, well, Maris is out of town. She's visiting the Holy Land." And Martin says, I thought she was in Dallas." And Niles says, "Yeah, she is. It's the site of the first Neiman Marcus."
It's a very good line.
I love it.
Lending a bit more to the idea that Maris is just this complete weirdo, like fashion obsessed, completely detached from reality. Yeah.
It's just brilliant, and David Hyde Pierce's delivery of it is just so deadpan. Like, I love it.
As always,
I love it. So that's Travels with Martin.
Yeah,
we have been across the country into Canada and back again, and we've come back to Niles, who's had a little bit of a off-screen enterprise, trying to write his own book. So we find out at the start of the episode that Niles has he's met with a publisher and he's agreed to sign on for a book deal, but unfortunately the ideas that he's come up with have all fallen through.
They've all already been done.
They've already been done.
For whatever reason can't do them and he needs to think of something else.
So so he speaks to Frasier and tries to come up with, on the fly, a very quick idea before he meets his publisher. Publisher comes in and gives him the idea. Two brothers, both psychiatrists, both got a rich history of patient files. There's an idea in that. And Niles immediately jumps on that and says, well, yep, that's what I was going to say.
Is that, yeah.
That's our idea, to the annoyance of Frasier.
Yes. Takes some convincing to get Frasier on board.
It does. But I don't know how book deals work, but I would not give someone money or, you know, the rights to a book before I knew what their idea was.
Yeah, you would. Surely they would need to, because they kind of just give him the idea, and then they say, oh, well, the publishers want the first few chapters, and that's, you know, the premise of the episode is Frasier and Niles trying to put together the first few chapters of this book that they're going to write. But yeah, I imagine in the real world, you would probably need to have several chapters, maybe even a first draft of the whole book, before you could even take it to a publisher and look at it getting done. Unless maybe you were a very well-known author. I guess
Niles is published. He does have sort of research papers and stuff. So I guess they could have given him you wouldn't call it like pro bono, would you?
Well, I guess.
I don't know what, given it before he's actually come up with the idea. They might see him as reliable enough. Yeah. Obviously he is he is not.
No.
But no, I mean,
this is a hilarious
episode. It's such a good episode.
This is a great episode.
So funny.
I think one of it really falls into the category of possibly the funniest collection of episodes across the whole show, that is just Frasier and Niles try to do something together and it completely falls apart because they are incapable of working together. The sibling rivalry just explodes 5 minutes into their professional relationship. We made a lot of jokes about this when we were first like, oh, why don't we do a podcast about Frasier? What could possibly go wrong? And then, you know,
we've made it 4 episodes in so far. I think we're doing okay.
Yes.
For the time being.
We'll be all right.
But no, this is the first proper Frasier Niles centric episode. You know, there's a few episodes with that focus on them quite a bit, and they've got quite a few scenes, but this is like the first plot based 2 of them doing something, and it pays off. Boy, so does it funny. Pay off. It is so good. Right from the get go, after they sign the book deal, Niles is trying to convince Frasier to sign on with it and to get on board with the idea, and they do their little song and dance, which is just...
I don't think we'd be able to do it justice, but
no.
you got to go and watch. And this is another one that they don't say anything explicit, but obviously the whole punchline is, you know what the next word they're going to say is, because it rhymes in the song, and they're going to say something rude. And I did not get this joke for several years because I was so young when I first watched it, but it's just hilarious.
It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. And their little dance is just, it was my ringtone for a long time. Their little song and dance was my ringtone for a good number of years. But it's brilliant. And that kind of kicks off their enthusiasm towards it. They get very excited at the idea of working together again. I think they did a play together.
Yes, they wrote a play together when they were in high school or middle school or whatever.
And that kind of brings back the memories. Their little dance brings back the memories of it. And they get very hyped up and very excited about doing it together. But it's kind of a non-starter. They've got all this excitement. Niles has got his laptop. They've got this great idea of, you know, the sibling psychiatrists and their cases, but they can't really formulate it into anything. So there's a good wee while of them kind of thinking, oh wait, well, what do we do? And they try and rope Martin in, see if they've got any anecdotes that they could use in the story. Like Waxahachie, Wachahoochie,
Kichawachi.
Martin trying to remember the childhood vacation spot that they went to. And he gets totally distracted, so he's no use. And then they come up with a bright idea of using Frasier's show, which is pretty morally...
It is pretty scummy. I mean, I guess if they prefaced it when they started recording, oh, we're doing a book, give us, you know, only call in if you don't mind us using things, or if they had Roz kind of screening them on what's going on. But yeah, the idea of just using their stories without the permission.
So they just set up the show saying, we want to hear your sibling stories. We want to hear your relationship with your siblings. Call us in, let us know, give us a good story kind of thing. And then they just write them down and just use them. Use them for the book. And after a call from their publisher, the wonderful Sam Tanaka, they realise that they've got a deadline to meet. So following the Gershwin brothers taking their lead. The Gershwin brothers, is that right? George and Ira Gershwin?
Yeah.
Is
Ira Gershwin a man?
I don't know.
I don't really know.
Siblings?
Were they siblings? Were they I have no idea. I'm sorry. I really have no idea who George and Ira Gershwin are.
I don't know who the Gershwins are.
I think this is maybe something that, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's an American thing that people are supposed to know.
I know they're composers.
Yeah.
I know that's as much as I know.
Beyond that, I'm afraid I have no idea.
Okay, right. Anyway, the Gershwins, whoever they may be, are the example that they try to follow by locking themselves in a hotel room and basically not coming out until the job is done.
Yeah.
So they rent this nice, fancy-looking hotel room, sit down and try to get to work on the book. Obviously, they are very distracted. Distracted by the minibar. Distracted by each other. They cannot seem to get a hold of it. They come up with some absolute nonsense. Trying to write it down and formulate it into the first chapter of the book. And it's just it's wonderful. It's just such a hilarious scene.
All this sibling rivalry just bubbles to the top, and they start fighting about anything they can think of. You know, Niles is envious in a way that Frasier's getting all this fame. Of course, he would never really admit it because he always looks down, or he says he looks down on it. But in a way, he is envious. He's upset at the fact that Frasier has, had a child and given their dad a grandchild before Niles had a chance to. And there's a lot of kind of younger brother stuff that is going to, build up there. And then in the end, it turns into the two of them acting like children. And
it does. And the physical comedy is great.
It is
them
great.
Sort of having a proper tussle and Niles jumping on Frasier's back and fighting him around the room and stuff is great. And the two of them, Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce, just
both so funny,
spot on, like absolutely spot on. You believe it. You believe that they're brothers.
Yeah.
This whole scene, and to be fair, most of the show, there's another episode coming up that we'll talk about that's just solidifies them as siblings. But the whole scene's great. The two of them together, bouncing off each other. It's it's so good. I can't even put it into words how much I love it. And so it obviously does not go well. They reach the end of the week. They don't have their chapters. They've written one line. One opening line
if that
they decide actually not to use because one of them ruined it. I think Frasier ruins it by making it a run-on sentence. And Frasier bails basically, which I think's pretty uncool. I think on the one hand it was kind of inconsiderate of Niles to rope Frasier into it before consulting him in the first place. But once he was on board, it was more important to Niles than it was to Frasier. So Frasier leaving and ditching it first was...
like he says, it's easy for Frasier to just say, okay, this isn't working, I'm not going to bother anymore.
He's already got his show.
He's got his show. He already has fame and recognition. This was Niles' chance to get some of that for himself in his own way. And, Frasier completely just disrespects that and doesn't bother helping him when he's needed most. And it's you can see why that would cause such a conflict.
Absolutely. And excuse me, it is inconsiderate, I think, but both of them kind of have their
faults.
Yeah, they've got their issues.
Yeah. So of course they have a big falling out. They're not talking to each other, and Martin, being the level-headed father that he is, puts them in their place. He comes up with his he recalls a time when one of his partners and he had a falling out on the police force. They had a stakeout together.
Yeah,
they had a stakeout and they fell out by the end of it. And a few months later, the partner got shot and killed in an armed robbery or whatever it is he says.
Yeah.
And Martin was too late to make up with him before he passed away. And of course, that touches everyone. Daphne's very upset by it. Frasier and Niles realise it's not worth it.
Yeah.
They shake hands, they hug, they make up. And Martin goes in to comfort Daphne and admits that he made it all up.
Yeah.
Which is another one. It's similar to the Travels with Martin scene when he's very quick thinking on his feet.
Yeah.
Of the lie, in that instance, the lie that Eddie's not vaccinated or it's not his rabies or whatever.
Yeah.
And here, he's very quick thinking. Right, what can I do to resolve this?
Yeah.
Quickly. It's like I know that they're both sympathetic or empathetic, I guess, towards like what I have to say.
Yeah.
So if I come up with a tale that will relate to this situation, then it might resolve it all.
Yeah.
And it does.
It does.
It does.
Although he starts the story off by saying, I never had a brother. The closest thing I ever had was my old partner who such and such, blah, 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 blah. But then we do find out, much later on, it's one of those little inconsistencies. 5 must be.
But
we find out that Martin does actually have a brother.
But, okay, right. In my head, I've kind of retconned that. So we're getting a wee bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But I want to resolve your issue.
Yeah.
So in that episode, it's revealed that Martin has a brother, and he and his brother's wife had a falling out.
Yeah.
So in my head, I think him saying I never had a brother was because they had this falling out, and he didn't want anyone asking questions.
Yeah.
So presumably Frasier and Niles knew, but maybe Daphne didn't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So by him saying I never had a brother, he's just saying we're currently not speaking. Don't ask me about it again.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But then after.
Yeah,
in that later.
There will be ways to explain it away a bit, I think.
I am explaining it away. But yeah, that's how I put it in my head.
Yeah.
But other than that minor inconsistency.
Yes.
Other than that minor inconsistency,
it is a fantastic episode.
It is one of the best.
Yeah.
It's absolutely just jam-packed with humor and perfect acting between Kelsey and David. Just spot on. Yeah, absolutely spot on.
And a great little guest appearance by the actor that plays Sam Tanaka. Goes by the stage name Mako. His name's Makoto Iwamatsu, Japanese actor. Did a lot of acting in the States, kind of 80s into the 90s. He was in the Conan the Barbarian films.
Okay.
And quite a few things around then. And then did a lot of voice acting in the 2000s. The thing that I really knew him well from is in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, really?
He voices Uncle Iroh, who is pretty much everyone's favourite character in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And he's in Samurai Jack, which I've not seen. I think he's the villain in Samurai Jack.
I've not seen Samurai Jack. No. I'm not seen Avatar either, to be fair.
No, he sadly passed away around 2008-ish. Okay. I think he was quite old. I don't think it was he was in advanced years.
Yeah.
But then one of the character, when Avatar: The Last Airbender came back with a sequel series, they named a character after him.
Oh.
Yeah, so people might recognize the name Mako if they're fans of Avatar. They might
That's a little tidbit for you.
So yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't put those together until I started looking it up.
He is great. He's only in a couple of scenes, but
he's a good actor.
He makes an immediate impact. Comes in with a beaming smile, and he's very friendly and very sort of how you would picture a publisher who wants something out of their clients kind of thing. He's very he seems to know what he needs to do to get people on board. Yeah, he's great. And there you go. So, I mean, 5 out of 5 for me.
Definitely 5 cups for me.
5 cupper.
This is a 5 cupper.
Yeah, absolutely no doubt in my mind. It's just absolute quality from start to finish. I love it. Absolutely love it. Only other thing I want to bring up is the end sequences. Again, this one's great, and it's great because it also gets a callback in one of the later episodes in season 4.
Yep.
The end sequence to this is there such a thing as a cold ending? We get cold opens. Do we get cold endings?
I guess
it's unrelated
maybe.
To the story.
Yeah.
We've got Eddie in the kitchen. Well, we've got a scene of the kitchen at night, and it slowly pans down to the countertop where there's is it muffins?
A plate of muffins.
Plate of muffins on the countertop, and we see Eddie after a few seconds jumping up from behind the counter a few times, and then he climbs up on the counter and gets hold of his muffin, which is just cute.
It is very funny.
I just love it. I just love Eddie.
Sweet.
He's just adorable.
He's a good dog.
And yeah, that is referenced. That exact scene is actually used
again
later on for I believe it's the Dream episode, which we'll get to in due time.
In due time.
In due course. So yeah, there we go. Another 5 cupper under our belt. There's no shortage of them in season 1.
No, there's not.
We take. I always thought we took a little bit of a dip in quality for this next episode.
Yeah,
but actually, upon rewatching it, it's very good.
Yeah,
I really like it. I think it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We have Frasier Crane's Day Off, the penultimate episode of season 1. Basically, Frasier's ill.
Yep.
He has caught a cold, caught a flu. He's not well, and he needs to take the week off work. Kind of puts things in perspective, given the last 2 years for us.
Yeah.
With the pandemic and everything. And just watching it and like Frasier like forcing himself or trying to force himself to go to work while he's obviously very ill. It just didn't.
Yeah, the idea of
right
going to
me.
work unwell is not good.
And before 2 years ago, it's not really something you would think twice at.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's ill and they need to work, then they need to work. You just do it, whether you're feeling ill or not. And now things have changed. But anyway, I will not dwell on that. The episode itself is great. I believe first appearance of Gil Chesterton.
Yes, I think it is.
I believe it's the first one we've seen him. He's very sleazy in this.
He is.
He's very underhanded and not quite the comic relief that he normally is.
Yeah. Later on, they kind of just play off him being a bit of a snob and kind of jokes about his being a bit pretentious and being a foodie and being quite camp and
quite flamboyant. They do play his sort of put his sexuality in question.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to say he's quite obviously gay, but it's
no. I mean, he does, but allegedly have a wife and everything.
He does.
We, he take him at face value.
Yes,
absolutely fair.
Gil Chesterton's quite an interesting character.
He is interesting. Forward. He is great, though. I do love Gil.
Yes.
It's especially some of his later appearances are very funny. But here he is introduced as the restaurant critic for KACL, and he comes in ostensibly just to drop off some food, some goodies for Frasier and Roz. Frasier was sneezing on air, and Gil's brought him some hot soup. But it quickly becomes apparent that that he is trying to weasel his way into their time slot. Yeah, because it's prime. It's right before dinner, isn't it? So
It's kind of like 1 till 4 or something. I think he's roughly.
So they air in the afternoon, and Gil, obviously, that's right before dinner, so he can talk about the restaurants and get people's reservations and
being a restaurant critic. I don't know if we mentioned that's what he does.
Did I not say? Oh, did I not say restaurant critic?
I don't know.
I didn't.
No. He's a restaurant critic.
He's a restaurant critic. Yeah. So yeah, that's prime time for him. So he's trying to kind of weasel his way in. And of course, with Frasier going off sick, he's then worried, oh no, Gil's going to get his way. And it turns out that is exactly what he's trying to do.
Yes.
Roz overhears. Or, there you go. Roz overhears that Gil's trying to get in good with the station manager.
So there must be a
station manager. So there must be a station manager.
We don't see them.
We don't know who it is yet. The turnover's so high. Who knows?
It is, yeah.
Who knows? So Frasier stuck in bed for the majority of the episode. Various appearances from the family members. We have Martin, who's regaling tales of when he was sick.
Yes.
Just
some
disgusting.
Horrible thoughts.
He talks about the time he went to Mexico, and he was very careful not to drink any of the water, and then he had one piece of lettuce.
Yeah.
And next thing he knows, he's got a parasite building his own little pagoda in his colon.
Something like that, yeah.
I believe is the phrase. We've got Niles, who's being very, he's
a real germaphobe.
Germaphobic, yeah, and very careful not to sit too close to Frasier, but bringing his sympathies and whatever. And Daphne, who's just very unfortunately treated. Like the servant to bring Frasier food and drink, and
a healthcare professional winds up playing nurse and doesn't realise what she's gotten herself in for. Frasier is
poor Daphne.
Not pleasant when he's not well. So Frasier gets very worried that Gil is taking over his time slot, as he is, and decides the only way that he can keep his time slot secure is to get someone else to fill in for him instead of Gil, and ropes in Niles.
Who better?
Yeah.
Who better than a fellow psychiatrist, fellow crane?
Yep. Assuming that Niles is going to be bad at it, because he's never done it before. And at first, he is. He's very dull and very dry, and obviously he's used to doing, psychiatry conferences or whatever. His public speaking style is much more academic.
It's not entertaining.
No, he is a psychiatrist first, and it's not until he really gets into it that he starts going on. But we get some. Actually, you know what? I'll wait until the end. But there's a lot of guest callers for this one because it's so radio centric. There's a big list of people who are guest callers, but he really gets into the swing of it, counseling a couple.
He does.
Everyone is, on the edge of their seat listening to him. They realize that he's really quite captivating.
We've got Roz with tears in her eyes.
Yeah,
Niles is standing up with a microphone in his hand.
Yeah, Roz normally sits and reads magazines when Frasier's on the air, and yet she's, listening intently. And Martin and Daphne are sitting, and
everyone's excited
on the edge of their seat. So Frasier realizes that he needs to. I mean, he's still very, very sick. He
has a dream, first of all.
He does.
He has a dream that Gil and Niles are in cahoots.
They're plotting against him. And you see, the scene's great. Frasier comes back to the show, and he's sitting in his chair, doing his show, and he turns around and he waves, and Niles and Gil are doing their sort of twins from The Shining impression, just waving at him. In sync from outside the booth.
And Frasier turns around and presses the button on his desk, and he explodes. Which is
very funny.
It's not the last dream sequence that we see.
No, we do get.
There are actually quite a few when I was thinking about
dreams.
it. But anyway, yes. So
so he realizes that he needs to rush back to the station, even though he's unwell. Relieve Niles so that he can get back on the air and make sure that he's not going to be usurped. And there's a little joke, and I was getting this completely backwards. It's kind of hard to explain. When he sends Daphne down to the pharmacy, he writes a prescription for himself, sends Daphne down to the pharmacy and goes, go and get me some of these, they'll make me feel better. And what he sends her down with is a prescription for a drug called Cytokine, which is not a real drug. But he sends, and it's presumably some kind of cold medicine that's going to make him completely loopy, or some kind of very strong painkiller that's going to make him a bit delirious. And the name Cytokine comes from one of the writers. I'm going to actually look at the screen and check that it was not one of the writers of this episode, but one of the writers of previous episodes, including Fortysomething that we were talking about earlier, whose name is Cy Duquesne.
Okay.
When I saw the name of the writer, I assumed that was a pen name that was a play on a real drug, and not the other way around, which it is more obviously that they named a fake drug after the writer of the show.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense. But I thought about it the other way around because I'm an idiot, apparently. But that was
really funny, though.
A little Easter egg.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's good.
So he takes these drugs, goes into the station, makes a complete tit of himself.
Yep, that's an understatement.
Yeah, with... he goes on the air with these collars. He locks himself in. As Roz puts it, Captain Kirk's gotten control of the bridge and he's gone insane.
Yep.
So he really is a bit unhinged there. And that's kind of how the episode rounds out, is them desperately trying to get Frasier back off the air and send him home again.
And they do, eventually.
And they do.
Ta-ta, pie man, as he says to Gil Chesterton. So they eventually round him off, and he goes back. He wakes up the next morning, presumably, afraid that he's had another nightmare, and Daphne comes in to comfort him and say, don't worry, it was all a dream, it's all fine. And as she's leaving the room, Martin, under his breath, says, why didn't you tell him? She says, well, it's no good telling him while he's still sick. We'll wait until he's nice and lucid before we tell him the truth.
Yes,
because she wants her payback for him being a right arse.
Yes,
during his sick leave. And it kind of ends there. It doesn't. We don't really see him going back to work or anything, or how Gil or Niles round off. But it's it's fine. It's fine. We know how it goes. He gets back to work.
He goes back to work. Yeah.
So I quite like it.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty funny.
It's a good episode.
I used to rate it quite low, but similar to Give Him the Chair, I used to rate it quite low and just not really care too much. But it's good.
It is a good episode. Yeah.
I would.
I get a bit sick of watching Frasier just acting like a lunatic. I think it gets a bit tiring towards the end.
It does.
It's kind of, there are a few bits that are quite funny, but I think I think there are other ways they could have written the jokes in rather than just Frasier being.
The scene goes on for a while.
Being delirious.
It does.
So that kind of takes a bit of it out for me, but overall it's good. I did say I'll go through the list because there's some very good guest callers. Being so radiocentric, loads of people call in, so they needed to get lots and lots of guest callers. So there was a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers called Steve Young, who called in at the beginning. He called in on his car phone and is told to close his eyes and visualize a tropical island or something, and then does so while driving and crashes his car.
Frasier didn't realize.
There's a cartoonist called Gary Trudeau who calls into Gil's show, or while Gil is filling in for Frasier, and getting reservations at a German restaurant. And
Schwarzwildkusttöten.
Yeah, well,
it's what he asks for.
An absolute mispronunciation. I looked up because I was really curious. I'd never heard of what that was. I looked it up. Apparently, what he's supposed to be saying is Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, which isn't that similar to what he says. I think he maybe pronounces it quite badly. That's just a really pretentious way of saying Black Forest Gateau.
Is it? Okay.
Apparently, is what he's...
Schwarz, yes.
Schwarzwälder as in and Kirsch is like the cherry brandy that you soak the cake
and then
in.
Tort is
Tort. Yeah. So it's there you go.
There you go. I didn't know that.
I had to look it up, but there you go.
Neither of us speak German.
Neither of us speak German. My pronunciation of that was probably terrible as well. I apologize. There's a call from Mary Tyler Moore. It's a very famous name.
Is the one I knew. Yeah.
The couple that get counselled by Niles on the air are Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet, who were known as Steve and Edie. I think they were like a musical duo. And
Steve and Edie rings a bell.
Quite prominent.
Yeah.
Someone calls in and says that it says their name's Robert, and Frasier says, "Oh well, we've already had a Robert on the show. Goodbye," and hangs up on him. He was Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh, Tommy Hilfiger,
the clothes
fashion
designer.
Yeah.
And someone calls and has an issue with their in-laws is Patty Hearst, or Patricia Hearst, which is a name that I recognize, and I didn't know exactly who she was. I looked up. I'm not going to get into it because it's actually a little bit sad. She was an actress and did various other things. I suggest going and looking up her life. It's a very interesting story.
Okay.
There's lots of ups and downs. There was several films made about her, because she just had a bit of a wild ride of it. But yeah,
you're intriguing me. I'll look that up later.
Yeah, I'll not get into it because some of it is a bit sad. But there you go. So big long list of guest callers.
Probably the longest list so far, I think.
Yeah. There are going to be more. There was the Christmas episode had quite a few because there's little montage of
it has
various people calling in. But we get that sometimes. We get lots of different callers.
So where would you put this wonderful episode? Frasier Crane's Day Off.
I'd give it a 3.
3 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I've given quite a few a 3. I was warned about this. When I said that we were giving it a rating out of 5, I was told it's better to use even numbers because then you can't just go down the middle.
Yeah.
Instead of rating something out of 5, apparently it's better to say it out of 4.
I think that's fair.
But we're sticking with 5 because that's what they do in Cafe Nervosa. So, we need to be accurate to the show. So we're sticking with 5. So there's probably going to be a lot of 3s. But yeah, I think this is just a nice kind of... It's not bad. It's not great.
Yeah, I think, as you said, there's the scenes where he goes into the office, all doped up, and the scenes where he's stuck in bed as well. Mm-hmm. I think they go on a little bit too long.
There's a bit too much of it.
Yeah, so it could have been a 4 if it was something a bit different.
Yeah.
But I think three's nice down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's very boring. We have very similar tastes in our episodes.
We do.
I think that's going to change as the seasons go on.
We'll build up to it. We'll build up to a big disagreement where one of us gives it a 5 and the other gives it a 1.
Definitely.
Throw hands up, great. But yeah.
But that was, Frasier Crane's Day Off, the penultimate episode of season 1. We have next possibly my favourite episode of the entire run.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favourite episodes of television.
Yes.
Ever
It
made.
is fantastic.
It is... I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of a better season finale of any show.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it is flawless.
It
basically.
Is great.
I can't... there's nothing about it that I would change. I think it's great. No, actually no. I'm not going to say there's nothing about it I would change. I think that's too definitive.
But it is very, very good.
It is so close to perfect, so My Coffee with Niles, obviously a parody on My Dinner with Andre, set solely in Cafe Nervosa.
Yes.
Primarily as another Frasier Niles episode. The two of them have met to get coffee on a day.
Any other day.
Any other day. They've stopped to get coffee.
As they do pretty much every episode.
Yep. And the whole episode just revolves around them getting coffee, having a chat. It sounds like such a boring premise.
Yeah.
And they make it so entertaining.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because this is what you'd call a bubble episode. Yeah. It's set all entirely.
I think bottle.
Bottle episode?
I say bottle. I think bubble is fair.
I think
I'm
maybe being stupid.
No, bubble is fair.
So it all set within one location.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about other TV shows that have done that, other sitcoms another example, like Friends, a very famous example that must have come out around about the same time. There's an episode where it's like they're all trying to get ready for some big event and there's lots of conflict. Or like there's an episode of Community where they're all someone's lost a pen and they're arguing and there's all this. There's lots and lots of famous examples of bottle episodes or bubble episodes, whatever you want to call them. Where there's always something driving it forward. There's still a plot, even though it's all in one location. There's still a plot that's kind of driving things. But this doesn't have that at all. There's not really like an overarching plot. There's no conflict. There's no time. It's just dialogue. There isn't like they're waiting for someone or they're having an argument about something that's happened before the start of the episode. It's just them kind of discussing things, and it shows how good the writing can be, how good the dialogue is for this show, that they don't need lots of locations, they don't need to have loads of characters around all the time, and they don't need a big convoluted plot line. They just need these two characters talking to each other, and it's very entertaining.
I completely agree. I was thinking actually what you're saying about like it being a bottle episode, whilst it is all in one location, I think they do a great job of making the different acts feel very different. Despite being in one location, we're set interior Cafe Nervosa at the start when it's very busy.
Yeah.
We then move outside onto the terrace, where the I would say the tone shifts slightly to be a bit more relaxed. They start to chat a bit more, and then it starts to rain, and they move back inside again, where it's still busy, but it's cleared out a bit, and they get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And that's just 3 areas of the same set, of the same location, but I think they make each act feel very different.
And they do manage to keep it.
And I really like that. It again, as you said, it shows just how phenomenal the writing was.
Yeah.
And the performance as well. Like, again, we're saying that in Author, between Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce, how it kind of reinforces that they could easily be siblings in real life. It's so you believe it right throughout. And this episode, again, just furthers that completely. You believe that you're watching two brothers having a conversation throughout. There's not one moment of doubt.
Yeah,
I would say, anyway.
I could see that.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. Although I would disagree with you slightly. You're saying there's no overarching plot, and I would disagree slightly with that, because for me, the plot is introduced when Niles asks, "Are you happy?"
That's true.
So the first act in Cafe Nervosa, Niles is already there. He's standing up by the counter. Frasier comes in and they start to chat. They realise it's busy and they can't get a seat, basic's There's a couple of little sort of funny moments. Niles staring down
tables.
Patron who's paid their bill but not moved on yet, I think.
Yeah.
So they decide to go and sit outside. And once they sit outside, Niles asks the question. He's been watching TV or something.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
And comes up with he's been pondering the question himself, and he wants to ask Frasier, "Are you happy?" And that kind of kicks off the conversation between them. They keep coming back to it throughout, and then of course at the very end, Niles leaves and Frasier answers the same question, but from a different character, from the barista, and for a different reason as well.
Completely different context, but
it's Niles is asking, overall in your life, are you happy?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would say that is, to me, that's the plot. The plot is them pondering their life. It's 1 year in as well. That's another thing that Frasier
a year since
mentions.
he moved to Seattle, or a year since Martin moved in with him.
Oh, that's
one of the two. I think it might be a year since he moved to Seattle.
I think it is, yeah. And then it would obviously be a week or two after that. A month or whatever that Martin moves in. But yeah, so that's been a year of him living in Seattle, and they kind of ponder over it. It's just wonderful. I just absolutely adore this episode. It's one thing I noticed as well is it's not constantly funny in the way that Author is. That's sort of, every other line is a joke from Niles or at Frasier's expense, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They're constantly, or the two of them making a joke. The humour is just, there all the time. Whereas My Coffee with Niles has some very funny moments, but there are periods as well where there's not, and it's just dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah.
I would say, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah. It's not always necessarily funny dialogue. It's just sometimes it's quite serious in a way, or sometimes it's, you know, discussing the characters. I mean, you get a lot of different topics they cover. They talk about Roz's love life. They talk about, you know, Roz appears at one point and Niles comments on, you know, she's attractive. Have you never thought about being with Roz? Which is something that does get brought up occasionally, that, you know, they're close friends, but, you know, have they never felt the need to get together? They talk about, it's the first time we really see it talked out in the open about Niles having a crush on Daphne. I think it's the only time he's ever really honest about it. Where he, you know, admits that he doesn't know if he is in love with Daphne, or if it's just a crush, or, you know, what he kind of wants to do is stay married to Maris and have an affair with Niles.
Can I do that?
Daphne.
Yeah, it's nice. And we've got Martin and Daphne as well, have their sort of little story as well. They're out for a walk, they get caught in the rain. Martin's been a bit of a grouch. We find out later it's because it was his birthday the previous week.
Yeah, and everyone missed it.
Everyone missed it. Everyone forgot, which is pretty cruel.
It is. It is quite sad.
Especially when he's been living with them, you know. And I think every other season does at least have a nod to Martin's birthday, or a lot of them do anyway. They do make up for that.
They do
consistently.
They do. At the end of season 2, they talk about, I think the finale of season 2.
It's actually the finale, isn't it? Yeah.
Martin's having a birthday party, and they do explicitly say, like, well, we forgot his birthday last year, so we need to make sure that it's good this year.
Yeah. So we have Martin and Daphne coming in, and the bit of the sort of frustration is aired and resolved between them. We also have the subplot of Frasier's coffee.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. It's the same barista, and I forgot to mention, I did make a note of it, but it's the same barista in Author. The young lady who takes absolutely no shit from Frasier or Niles. She's fed up with them. She serves them with a smile, but she gives as good as she gets from them.
It's a shame that we don't see her that much more. I think she might only be in the first season.
I think, don't call me out on it, but I think we might get 1 or 2 more episodes at the start of season 2 with her.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong, which I very well could be.
It is a bit of a shame that we don't get to see her more, because she's a good character.
There's a couple of baristas in Nervosa that we get sort of periods where they are in it.
Later on, there's one who is actually named. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but there is one that's named who we see, you know, every other episode, even times. Just in the background, we don't see it very much.
But anyway, so we see her, and Frasier's ordered a cup of coffee, and he keeps complaining about it, and she keeps bringing out a new cup with something resolved, but something else has gone wrong. It's kind of like the putting the sheets over your mattress.
You pull one edge off. Yeah. If it's not decaf, it's full fat milk. If it's
got cinnamon on it.
Non-fat milk, it's got cinnamon on it, and it's this and it's that.
It's great. But I really like that. I really like her, and she's the one who asks at the end of the episode, there you go, here's your coffee, are you happy? Just quite, you know, bluntly, and he says, you know, yes, in the grand scheme of things. So he answers Niles' question to her in the end. And
it's a nice way to round out the season.
It is. It's wonderful.
You know, he's gone through a lot over the course of the first season with, you know, his life changing so much, and, you know, Daphne becoming such a big part of his life, you know, moving in with him, and Martin moving in with him, and Eddie moving in with him, and, you know, having all these big changes to his life. And of course, at the time, as he's working his way through it, it makes him really angry, it makes him miserable, and he's sick of it. And then at the end, to think, well, actually, no, you know what, I'm happy with the way that things are. Things are still not perfect, but they're moving on, and I'm happy about it. It is nice to see, after seeing so much conflict over the course of the season.
Yeah, you know, every other episode is either Frasier and Niles falling out, or Frasier and Martin falling out, or whatever. So yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's, you know, the first few seasons of the show, we get a one episode finale and that's it. But then after that, it's, I believe, consistent for the remainder of the series that it's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
They all end on a cliffhanger, which, when you compare it to something like My Coffee with Niles, it feels like it falls short. I like the season just rounding off nicely with a good episode, rather than being left on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't mind the cliffhanger, but I think this shows how good a finale can be. So yeah.
Yeah.
There's some great like little zingers in it as well throughout the episode. I love the allusion to David Hyde Pierce being gay.
Yes,
is one of my favorites. I think we mentioned it before.
Yeah,
but when Niles comments on Rose's date, says he's always a very handsome man, and he says, he says wow, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He says, I've never said wow about another man before. Do you think that means something? And Frasier says, yes, it does. It means you're a gay man. Obviously being facetious, but Niles, or David Hyde Pierce, I should say, does this very sneaky 1 second look directly into the camera
kind of.
I don't know if that was intentional.
It might not have been.
It might have been just,
but it is. It would be a hell of a coincidence if it wasn't.
Yeah. So I like that.
I think a lesser show maybe would have had, a wink or, a quick wiggle of the eyebrows or something into the camera, because it is quite
And I love Niles as well, his interruption when Martin and Frasier are going at it, and there's a like split second break in the argument, and Niles turns around and he says, "Hey Dad, how about them Mariners?" Just totally out of the blue, trying to move on from the argument, and Martin tells him to shut up, and just
it is very funny.
The timing and like interactions between all the actors is it shows just how good the casting was, and how good the dialogue is, and it's brilliant. Do you have a favorite moment
in the episode?
Just from this episode?
It's something that we have seen and we will continue to see over and over again, is the relationship between Niles and Roz.
Yeah.
How Roz is a lot more, I don't know if you'd necessarily say she's blue collar. She can be quite sophisticated and quite fancy sometimes, but she's definitely a lot more grounded and a lot more down to earth, and unwilling to put up with Niles thinking that he's better than her. And when she first shows up to the cafe, Niles says, "Well, what are you doing here?" And she just very sarcastically says, like, "Oh, well, they're offering a special on jet flying lessons. I've always wanted to learn how to fly a jet," and just kind of saying, "Well, clearly a stupid question. I'm here for coffee."
Yeah.
It's nice seeing the relationship between the two of them, because I think they are very funny.
They've got some good moments coming up as well.
Insults back and forth are great.
They've got a couple of good moments in season 2 as well, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
They have some good interactions I like. But yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a good moment. And that's it.
That's it. That's
season 1. End of season 1.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I don't think it even needs to be said that this is a 5-cupper.
Yeah, 100%.
Like without a doubt.
No argument for me.
I would give it more if I could.
Yep.
Because I just think it's absolutely phenomenal. I think it's so good. And probably best episode of the season for me, I think. Maybe, I don't know about you.
I would maybe give that to Oops, which we talked about last episode, a couple of episodes ago. I think it's the third disc, so previous episode.
Third disc, yeah.
I would personally give it to Oops, with
Bulldog.
Yes,
going to
Bulldog accidentally quitting, and all about the rumors in the workplace and the whole kind of KSL dynamic. Yeah. I don't know. I would probably give it to that.
Okay, that's an interesting
Maybe.
Choice.
Yeah,
I don't think I would rate that. There's a few I'd put before that.
I definitely commend My Coffee with Niles because of its style, because there isn't a big drawn out plot. There isn't a lot of different locations. I think as we've said before, it's just dialogue. It works so well because of that.
Yeah.
Lots of kudos for that.
Yeah.
But personally, I think I prefer Oops.
Okay. No, that's fair. Absolutely fair.
Yeah.
What about from this disc? Have you got a highlight from this disc?
It's hard to pick one. With so many great episodes, it is hard to pick one. What about you? You go first, because I'm going to struggle to pick.
For the sake of diversity and not picking My Coffee with Niles twice,
yeah,
I'm going to say author.
Just the whole episode?
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
But if you want me to pick a particular moment, I'm going to pick the scene in the hotel.
Yeah.
The scene in the hotel, or the song and dance.
The song. See, I'm probably gonna have to go with the song and dance.
Okay, I'll go with the scene in the hotel.
Okay, well there you go. We'll be different.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, that is a fantastic episode and lots of great bits.
Yeah. The little song. Yeah, the song and dance is good.
Go and watch it. If you aren't watching along with us, then go and watch that episode on its own, or just that scene. Try and find it.
Yeah. So you were going to round off. You were going to let us know of some of the accolades.
Yes.
That this first season.
Lots of different accolades across different awards. I can see Writers Guild Awards and Viewers for Quality Television Awards being listed there. I have a big list of all the Emmys that they won. I'll run through because there's
just for season 1.
Quite a few. Just for season 1, They won 4 Emmys, and were also nominated for several more. So they won Outstanding Comedy Series.
Not surprising.
Not surprising at all. They won Outstanding Lead Actor, or Kelsey Grammer won Outstanding Lead Actor.
Did Kelsey Grammer win an Emmy? I didn't realise that. Okay.
Outstanding Individual Achievement for Directing, which went to James Burrows, who directed The Good Son. Well, he directed actually
the pilot. Okay.
Lots of the episodes.
But for the pilot.
For the pilot specifically. And also Outstanding Individual Achievement in Writing, which was also for the pilot, which went to the 3 creators of the show, David Angel, Peter Casey, and David Lee, who wrote the pilot. They also wrote My Coffee with Niles.
Yeah.
So yeah, the pilot episode on its own won 2 Emmys, which shows how good it is. Mm-hmm. But then also, David Hyde Pierce was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win. He won, I think, about 4 or 5 times throughout the run of the show. I think in our first episode I said that he won every time. He was nominated.
I think he was
every
not.
time.
Yeah, I was wondering. I
misspoke. Yeah, he was nominated every time, and he still holds the record for most nominations.
Right.
But he didn't win every time, but he was nominated for this season.
Who won? Did you see who?
I'm not sure.
He lost to?
Okay. I think. Oh no, because I would have a list of it here. In other seasons, John Mahoney got nominated alongside David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah.
There have been some years when they were both nominated for the same thing, which is certainly fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
John Glover, who played Ned Miller in Oops, played the station manager, he was nominated for Outstanding Guest Actor.
Oh, wow.
And also Ken Levine and David Isaacs, who I believe were Cheers alumni, they wrote the show where Lilith comes back.
Okay.
The one where Lilith makes a guest appearance. They were nominated for Outstanding Writing for that as well. So
there you go.
Yeah. 7 nominations, of which 4 won for one season of a TV show.
For the first season
the first season, yeah.
That is quite an achievement.
Goes to show how good it is.
And that's just Emmys.
That's just Emmys. Like,
whatever else.
It's got its own, I can see here, it's got its own Wikipedia page for a list of awards and nominations across so many different things.
As we go through, we'll try and keep on top of that and get through them all. But
yeah.
What a season. I mean,
fantastic season.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I hope you'll come back and stick with us as we start season 2.
Won't be long. We'll be back for season 2.
We'll be back for season 2. So I mean, that's season 1.
That's season 1
in the bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see you next time for some more shenanigans.
Yeah.
Season 2 starts off with a bang. The first disc of season 2 is pretty good.
I'm excited for season 2. I think season 2 might be my favourite season wide.
All right, we'll see. We'll keep a go of the marks as we go.
Yeah,
the averages, and see what actually ranks the highest. Because I think we might be surprised.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it rounds out. When we're rating it episode by episode.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Well, as ever, I have been Frasier.
I've been Euan.
Yeah, and thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Bye. This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leo O'Donnell for the show's artwork.